in the heart of Silver Creek, a small town known for its close-knit community and vibrant spirit, a storm brews as the notorious Shadow Riders gang threatens to tear everything apart. When Carlos Ramirez, a veteran and beloved shopkeeper, discovers his family store vandalized, he knows it's time to take a stand. With one phone call, he rallies his friends and neighbors, igniting a powerful movement of unity and courage. As the community bands together, they face their fears head-on, transforming from victims into warriors ready to fight for their home. Will their newfound bravery be enough to reclaim Silver Creek from the grips of fear? Carlos Ramirez woke up early one bright Saturday morning. He was excited because it was the day of the big sale at his family's store. The sun shone brightly, and the birds chirped happily outside. Carlos loved his store. It was a small place filled with toys, snacks, and all sorts of fun things for kids and families. His father had started the store many years ago, and Carlos had worked there since he was a little boy. As Carlos arrived at the store, he noticed something strange. The door was slightly ajar. He felt a knot in his stomach as he pushed the door open. Inside, everything looked different. Shelves were knocked over, toys were scattered everywhere, and the walls were covered in spray paint. Carlos's heart raced as he realized what had happened. The Shadow Riders, a gang known for causing trouble in the neighborhood, had vandalized his family's store. Carlos felt anger bubbling inside him. This was not just a store, it was a part of his family's history. He remembered all the happy moments spent there with his parents and friends. Now, it felt like those memories were being ripped away by the gang's actions. He took a deep breath to calm himself, but found it hard to shake off the feeling of dread. He picked up a few toys from the floor and placed them back on the shelves. As he worked, thoughts raced through his mind. How could someone do this? Why would they target his store? Carlos knew that the Shadow Riders were not just any gang, they were ruthless and did whatever they wanted without thinking about others. Carlos decided he couldn't just stand by and let this happen. He needed to protect his family's legacy and make sure that his store would be safe again. But how? He thought about calling the police, but he knew that would take time, and sometimes they didn't arrive quickly enough to help. Carlos felt a surge of determination as he prepared for the next steps. He knew he needed more information about the Shadow Riders and their activities in the area. He decided to reach out to his friend Luis, who always seemed to know what was happening in town. Luis had a knack for picking up on local gossip and could provide valuable insights. Carlos called Luis, and as soon as he picked up, Carlos could sense the tension in his friend's voice. Luis had heard about the vandalism at the store and was concerned. He quickly shared what he knew about the Shadow Riders. They weren't just any gang, they were known for their violent behavior and had been causing trouble in different neighborhoods for months. Luis explained how they would intimidate local businesses, demanding money or threatening to destroy property if they didn't comply. Carlos listened closely, feeling a chill run down his spine. The gang's activities were worse than he had imagined. They had been targeting stores like his, using fear to get what they wanted. Luis mentioned that many shop owners were scared to speak up, fearing retaliation. This made Carlos realize that he wasn't just fighting for his store, he was standing up for all the small businesses in the area. Luis also told Carlos about a recent incident where a local bakery had been vandalized because the owner refused to pay the gang's demands. Hearing this made Carlos's heart race with anger and fear. He understood that if he didn't act quickly, his store could be next. After hanging up with Luis, Carlos felt a sense of urgency wash over him. He needed to gather more support and find a way to protect his store and others from these bullies. He thought about reaching out to Detective Isabella, who worked in the local police department. She was known for her dedication to keeping the community safe and had dealt with gangs before. Carlos dialed Detective Isabella's number, hoping she would have some advice or resources to help him. When she answered, Carlos explained everything that had happened at his store and what Luis had shared about the gang's activities. He could tell that Detective Isabella took him seriously as she listened intently. She warned him that the Shadow Riders were dangerous and that their influence was growing stronger in town. Detective Isabella explained that they often targeted businesses with weak defenses, and if they sensed fear or weakness, they would strike again. Her words sent a shiver down Carlos's spine as he realized just how serious the situation was. Detective Isabella urged Carlos to take precautions immediately. She suggested installing security cameras and getting involved with other local business owners who might be facing similar threats. She emphasized that it was important for everyone to stand together against the gang instead of facing them alone. After hanging up with Detective Isabella, Carlos felt a mix of fear and determination. He knew he had to act fast before it was too late. The clock was ticking, and every moment counted. He thought about how many people depended on his store and how much it meant to his family. Carlos began making a list of things he needed to do right away. First, he would call a security company to install cameras around the store. Then he would reach out to other business owners in the area and organize a meeting to discuss their options against the gang. As night deepened around him, Carlos felt more resolute than ever. He understood that this battle was not just about protecting his store, it was about standing up against fear and intimidation in their community. He was ready to take action, knowing that together with Detective Isabella, Luis, Mike, and other local business owners, they could fight back against the Shadow Riders. He knew that by standing strong and uniting with others, they could push back against those who sought to bring fear into their lives. Carlos took a deep breath and got to work, fueled by hope and determination as he prepared for the challenges ahead. The storm was coming, but so was a wave of courage ready to meet it head-on. Carlos felt a surge of energy as he began to make his plans. He knew he couldn't do this alone. He remembered the friends he had made during his time in the military. They had faced tough situations together, and now he needed their help again. With a firm resolve, Carlos pulled out his phone and started dialing the numbers of his old contacts. One by one, he reached out to his former comrades. He explained what was happening with the Shadow Riders and how they had vandalized his family's store. Each call brought back memories of camaraderie and shared challenges. His friends listened intently, expressing their support and willingness to help. They understood the importance of standing up against bullies and protecting what mattered. As he hung up from one call, Carlos felt a sense of hope building within him. His friends were ready to rally around him, just like they had done in the past when facing challenges together. The thought of having their support filled him with courage. After reaching out to his military friends, Carlos thought about Maria. She was not only his partner but also someone who always believed in him. He knew she would have valuable insights and could help him think through the next steps. Carlos called her, eager to share what was happening. When Maria answered, Carlos could hear the concern in her voice as he explained everything: the vandalism, the gang's threats, and his plans to fight back. Maria listened carefully, her mind racing with thoughts about how they could protect the store and their community. Maria had always been a source of strength for Carlos. She understood his passion for the store and how much it meant to him. As they talked, she encouraged him to take action but reminded him to be careful. She knew how dangerous gangs could be and wanted him to stay safe. Carlos appreciated Maria's support more than words could express. She suggested organizing a community meeting to bring everyone together: business owners, residents, and anyone who wanted to stand up against the shadow riders. This idea sparked something inside Carlos. He realized that unity was their best weapon against fear. With Maria by his side, Carlos felt even more determined. They began discussing how they could spread the word about the meeting and encourage others to join them in their fight against the gang. They decided to create flyers and share them on social media, inviting everyone who cared about their neighborhood. As they worked together on this plan, Carlos felt grateful for Maria's presence. She was not just supportive, she was a partner in every sense of the word. Their bond grew stronger as they faced this challenge together. The next day, Carlos and Maria set out to distribute flyers around town. They visited local businesses, schools, and community centers, sharing their message of unity against the shadow riders. Many people were eager to join them. They were tired of living in fear and wanted their voices heard. With each flyer handed out, Carlos felt a sense of purpose growing inside him. He realized that this wasn't just about his store anymore, it was about standing up for their entire community. The more people that joined them, the stronger they would become. As days passed, excitement built around the upcoming meeting. People were talking about it at coffee shops and parks. There was a buzz in the air that hadn't been there before. Carlos knew they were onto something important. On the night of the meeting, people gathered at a local community center. The room buzzed with energy as neighbors exchanged stories about their experiences with the shadow riders. Carlos looked around at all the faces filled with determination and hope, people who were ready to take action. As he stood at the front of the room with Maria by his side, he felt a wave of pride wash over him. This was it, the moment when they would stand together against fear and intimidation. Carlos took a deep breath as he prepared to speak, knowing that this was only the beginning of their fight against those who threatened their way of life. With every heart beating in unison for change, Carlos understood that they were not just fighting for themselves, but for everyone who believed in safety and community spirit. The storm was coming, but so was a powerful force ready to meet it head-on, a united front determined to reclaim their neighborhood from those who sought to tear it apart. As he looked into the crowd filled with familiar faces and new allies alike, Carlos felt an unshakable belief that together they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The night of the community meeting was charged with energy, but Carlos knew that the real test was still to come. As he and Maria wrapped up their discussions, a sense of unease settled over him. He felt it in the air, a tension that hinted at what was about to happen. The shadow riders were not going to sit back and let the community unite against them without a fight. Days passed, and Carlos worked tirelessly with his neighbors to strengthen their defenses. They installed security cameras around the store and organized patrols to keep an eye on things. But deep down, Carlos knew that they would eventually have to confront the gang directly. He prepared himself for that moment, knowing it would not be easy. One afternoon, as Carlos was closing up the store, he noticed a group of figures approaching from down the street. His heart sank when he recognized them, the Shadow Riders led by Victor, their notorious leader. Carlos felt a rush of adrenaline as he straightened his back and prepared for what was coming. Victor strode forward confidently, flanked by his gang members who looked eager for trouble. Carlos stood firm at the entrance of his store, ready to face whatever Victor had in store for him. The atmosphere grew tense as Victor approached, a smirk on his face that sent shivers down Carlos's spine. Victor wasted no time getting to the point. He made it clear that he was not pleased with the community's efforts to stand against his gang. He issued an ultimatum: pay them a hefty sum or face severe consequences. The threat hung in the air like a dark cloud, heavy and foreboding. Carlos felt anger bubbling inside him, but he took a deep breath to calm himself. He remembered all the support he had from his friends and neighbors. He couldn't let fear dictate his actions now. Instead of responding with aggression, he chose to remain calm and collected. As Victor continued to rant about power and control, Carlos stood his ground. He spoke clearly and confidently about how the community would no longer tolerate the gang's behavior. He emphasized that they were united and ready to fight back against intimidation. Victor's expression shifted from amusement to irritation as Carlos spoke. The calmness in Carlos's voice contrasted sharply with Victor's aggressive demeanor. It was as if Carlos's steadiness was a challenge to Victor's authority, a challenge that made Victor furious. The gang members shifted uncomfortably at Victor's side, sensing the tension rising between their leader and Carlos. They were used to instilling fear in others, but were now witnessing something different, a man refusing to back down. Victor took a step closer, trying to intimidate Carlos with his presence, but Carlos did not flinch. Instead, he looked Victor directly in the eye, showing no signs of fear or weakness. This only fueled Victor's anger further. Carlos knew that this confrontation could escalate quickly, but he also understood that standing up for himself and his community was worth any risk. The stakes were high. It was not just about him anymore, but about everyone who believed in safety and unity. As they faced off in this tense standoff, Carlos felt an unexpected surge of strength flow through him. He realized that he had allies behind him, friends who believed in him and would support him no matter what happened next. Victor finally broke eye contact, realizing that his intimidation tactics were failing against Carlos's resolve. In a fit of rage, he shouted threats before turning on his heel and storming away with his gang members trailing behind him. Carlos watched them leave, heart racing but filled with a sense of victory. He had stood up against Victor and refused to be intimidated. The confrontation had been intense, but it had also solidified something important within him, a belief that they could fight back against fear together. As he turned back toward the store, Maria rushed over with concern etched on her face. She had witnessed everything from inside and could see how shaken he was despite his calm exterior. But deep down, Carlos felt stronger than ever before. He knew this was just one battle in a larger war against the Shadow Riders, but it had set a powerful tone for what was to come. The community would not back down. They would stand united against those who tried to tear them apart. With renewed determination coursing through him, Carlos prepared for the next steps in their fight against the gang. The storm was far from over, it was only just beginning. But now more than ever, he believed they could weather it together as one strong community ready to reclaim their neighborhood from fear and intimidation. As Carlos turned back toward the store, Maria rushed over, her eyes wide with concern. She could see the tension in his shoulders and the way his hands trembled slightly. He had faced Victor and the gang, and though he felt stronger inside, the confrontation had left him shaken. Maria reached out, placing a comforting hand on his arm, grounding him in the moment. But just as seriousness hung in the air, Maria's expression shifted. A playful glint sparkled in her eyes as she looked down at the floor of the store. She noticed a few crumbs scattered near the counter from a snack that had been dropped earlier in the day. With a smirk, she quipped about how it looked like a small army of crumbs had decided to invade their space. Carlos couldn't help but chuckle despite the heaviness of the moment. Maria's humor was like a breath of fresh air, cutting through the tension that had built up during Victor's visit. Her ability to find lightness even in dark times reminded Carlos of why he loved her so much. She was strong and resilient, always able to lift his spirits when he needed it most. As they both knelt down to clean up the crumbs, Maria continued with her playful banter, making jokes about how they should start charging rent for all the crumbs that seemed to be taking over their store. Carlos laughed harder now, feeling the weight of worry lift just a little. It was moments like these that reminded him of the importance of laughter and joy, even when facing serious challenges. With each crumb they picked up, Carlos felt more connected to Maria. They were partners not just in business but in life. Her strength shone through not only in her ability to support him, but also in her knack for finding humor even when things got tough. It was this balance between seriousness and light-heartedness that made their bond so special. Once they finished cleaning up, Carlos stood up and looked at Maria with gratitude. He realized how much he needed her by his side, not just for support but for her unwavering spirit that helped keep him grounded. They shared a moment of understanding. They were in this together, ready to face whatever came next. As they prepared to close up for the night, Carlos felt renewed energy coursing through him. The battle against the Shadow Riders was far from over, but he knew he had Maria and their community behind him. With laughter echoing in his heart and determination fueling his spirit, he felt ready to take on anything. The humor had lightened his mood and reminded him that even in difficult times, there was always room for joy. As they locked up the store together, Carlos glanced back one last time before heading home, feeling a sense of hope that had been rekindled by laughter and love. The storm was still brewing on the horizon, but now Carlos understood that with humor and unity, they could weather it together. The fight against fear would continue, but so would their strength as a community, stronger than ever before and ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. As Carlos drove home that night, the weight of the day settled on his shoulders. He reflected on everything that had happened, the vandalism, the confrontation with Victor, and the support of his friends and community. Each moment had brought him closer to understanding his role in this fight. He was not just a shopkeeper, he was a veteran, someone who had faced challenges before and was prepared to stand up for what he believed in. Arriving home, Carlos parked the car and took a deep breath. He stepped inside, where the familiar scent of home wrapped around him like a warm blanket. Maria was already there, preparing dinner. The sound of sizzling in the kitchen was comforting, a reminder of normalcy amid the chaos outside. As they sat down to eat, Carlos shared his thoughts with Maria. He spoke about how he felt ready to take action against the Shadow Riders. He explained that he wanted to show them that they could not intimidate him or his community any longer. Maria listened intently, nodding in agreement as he outlined his plans for the coming days. Carlos knew that they needed to be strategic. They would gather more community members, strengthen their defenses, and develop a plan to confront the gang if necessary. He felt a sense of purpose growing within him as he spoke about their next steps. This was not just about protecting a store, it was about standing up for their neighborhood and ensuring safety for everyone. After dinner, Carlos went into his home office and pulled out old military gear from his days in service. He examined each piece with care, the worn leather boots, the tactical vest, and even the dog tags that hung around his neck. These items represented his past, but also reminded him of his commitment to protect those he cared about. As he suited up in preparation for what lay ahead, Carlos felt a surge of confidence. He was ready to face whatever challenges came his way. The calm before the storm had transformed into a determination that burned brightly within him. He thought about the community meeting they had organized and how many people were willing to join him in this fight. It wasn't just about him anymore, it was about everyone who believed in standing up against fear and intimidation. Together, they would create a united front against the Shadow Riders. Carlos spent the night planning and strategizing, jotting down ideas and potential actions on paper. He knew that they needed to be smart and coordinated in their approach. They would not only confront the gang, but also work to empower others in their community to do the same. As dawn broke over the horizon, Carlos felt a renewed sense of clarity. The sun shone brightly outside, symbolizing hope and new beginnings. He gathered his notes and prepared himself for the day ahead, knowing that it would be filled with important conversations and planning sessions. With each passing hour, Carlos felt more ready for battle. He understood that this was just part one of a larger story, a story about resilience, courage, and community spirit. The fight against the Shadow Riders would not be easy, but he was determined to see it through. Carlos stepped outside into the fresh morning air, feeling invigorated by what lay ahead. He was ready to defend his home, his store, and his community with every ounce of strength he possessed. The storm may have been brewing on the horizon, but so was a wave of determination ready to meet it head-on. As he walked through town that day, Carlos felt a sense of purpose guiding him forward. He knew that together with Maria, their friends, and their neighbors, they could face anything that came their way. The battle was just beginning, but Carlos was prepared, ready to fight for what mattered most: safety, unity, and hope for their future. As Carlos walked through Silver Creek, memories began to flood his mind, taking him back to his days in the military. He remembered the early mornings spent training, the sound of boots hitting the ground in unison, and the camaraderie he shared with his fellow soldiers. Each moment was etched in his memory, shaping him into the man he had become. In one vivid flashback, Carlos found himself in a dusty training field, surrounded by his unit. They were practicing maneuvers, learning how to work together under pressure. He recalled the feeling of adrenaline as they executed strategies that required trust and teamwork. Every drill taught him the importance of relying on others and being prepared for anything. He remembered a particular mission where they had to navigate through a hostile area. The tension was high, but Carlos felt calm and focused. He relied on his training and instincts to guide him. They moved as one unit, communicating silently and supporting each other through every challenge. It was a lesson in resilience, how working together could overcome even the toughest obstacles. As he walked through town now, Carlos realized that those lessons were just as relevant today. The community of Silver Creek was like a family, and they needed to come together to face the threat posed by the Shadow Riders. He understood that their strength lay not just in individual efforts, but in their ability to unite and support one another. Carlos thought about how he could apply his military experience to their current situation. He began to strategize ways to organize the community effectively. Just like in the military, they needed a plan, a way to coordinate their efforts against the gang that threatened their safety. He envisioned meetings where everyone could share their ideas and concerns. They would need to establish clear roles for each person willing to help. Some could focus on security measures, while others could spread awareness throughout Silver Creek about what was happening. The more informed everyone was, the better prepared they would be. As Carlos continued walking, he felt a sense of urgency building within him. He needed to act quickly before fear took hold of the community. Just like on the battlefield, hesitation could lead to dire consequences. He knew that if they didn't stand up now, they risked losing everything they held dear. His thoughts shifted back to his military friends who had offered their support. They were ready to assist in any way possible, bringing their skills and experience into the fight against the gang. Carlos felt grateful for their willingness to help. It reinforced his belief that they were not alone in this battle. Arriving at the community center where they had held meetings before, Carlos took a deep breath and stepped inside. The room was filled with familiar faces, neighbors who shared his concerns and were ready to take action. The atmosphere buzzed with determination as people exchanged ideas about how they could work together. Carlos stood at the front of the room, feeling a surge of pride as he looked around at everyone gathered there. This was it, the moment when they would come together as a united front against the Shadow Riders. He felt a connection with each person present. They were all fighting for the same cause, safety and peace for their community. As he began to speak, he emphasized the importance of resilience and teamwork. He reminded them of their shared history and how they had always supported one another through tough times. Together, they would face this challenge head-on. The room erupted with enthusiasm as people shared their thoughts and ideas about how they could protect Silver Creek from harm. Each suggestion built upon the last, creating a sense of unity that filled Carlos with hope. In that moment, he realized that just like in his military past, it was not just about individual bravery, but about collective strength. They were all part of something bigger than themselves, a community ready to stand firm against threats and support one another through whatever came next. As plans began to take shape, Carlos felt a renewed sense of purpose wash over him. The war for Silver Creek had begun, but with resilience and unity guiding them forward, he believed they could overcome any obstacle in their path. Together, they would reclaim their neighborhood from fear and intimidation, stronger than ever before. As the meeting at the community center came to a close, Carlos felt a sense of urgency to take the next steps. He knew that words alone would not be enough to combat the Shadow Riders. They needed a solid plan. With determination in his heart, he decided to reach out to Iron Mike, one of his closest friends from his military days. Mike had always been a source of strength and wisdom, and Carlos knew he could count on him for support. Carlos arranged to meet Mike at a local diner, a place where they had shared many meals and memories over the years. As he walked in, he spotted Mike sitting in a booth, his broad shoulders and serious expression instantly putting Carlos at ease. They exchanged greetings, and Carlos could feel the camaraderie between them as they settled into their seats. Over coffee and burgers, Carlos explained the situation with the Shadow Riders. He shared everything he had learned from the community meeting and how important it was for them to act quickly. Mike listened intently, nodding as Carlos spoke about the need for strategy and teamwork. Mike leaned back in his seat, his mind racing with ideas. He suggested gathering more veterans from their unit to form a tactical team. They could use their training to help plan patrols and establish security measures around Silver Creek. The thought of working alongside his old comrades filled Carlos with hope. They had faced challenges together before, now they would do it again for their community. As they brainstormed, Mike shared stories of other towns that had successfully pushed back against gang violence through unity and action. Each story reinforced Carlos's belief that they could make a difference if they worked together. The bond between them grew stronger as they discussed tactics and strategies, reminding Carlos of the brotherhood they had built during their service. After finishing their meal, Carlos and Mike decided to reach out to other veterans in town. They made calls, inviting them to join their efforts against the Shadow Riders. Each conversation brought more excitement and determination as old friends rallied together for a common cause. Later that evening, just as Carlos was wrapping up his calls, he received an unexpected visit from Detective Hernandez. She was known for her dedication to keeping Silver Creek safe and had valuable information about the Shadow Riders' operations. Carlos welcomed her into his home, eager to hear what she had to share. Detective Hernandez wasted no time getting to the point. She explained that the Shadow Riders were planning a major operation that could escalate tensions in town. They were known for targeting local businesses during busy hours when people were most vulnerable. This new intel sent chills down Carlos's spine. He realized how urgent it was for them to act swiftly. She detailed how the gang operated, how they moved through town in groups, intimidating shopkeepers and demanding money or protection fees. Detective Hernandez urged Carlos to be vigilant and prepare for potential confrontations. She emphasized that they needed to work together as a community to deter the gang's influence. Carlos felt a mix of fear and determination as he listened to her insights. This was not just about protecting his store anymore, it was about safeguarding everyone in Silver Creek. He understood that if they didn't act soon, lives could be at risk. With renewed focus, Carlos shared his plans with Detective Hernandez about forming a tactical team with veterans from his unit. He explained how they intended to patrol the streets and keep an eye on gang activity while also encouraging community members to report any suspicious behavior. Detective Hernandez nodded in agreement, impressed by their proactive approach. She offered her support, promising to provide additional resources from the police department if needed. Together, they discussed ways to keep communication open between law enforcement and community members so everyone felt empowered to speak up against crime. As night fell over Silver Creek, Carlos felt a sense of camaraderie growing stronger among those who were willing to fight back against fear and intimidation. He knew that with Iron Mike's help and Detective Hernandez's intel, they could develop an effective plan to protect their town. Carlos went to bed that night feeling hopeful yet aware of the challenges ahead. The war for Silver Creek was intensifying, but he believed that with loyalty, teamwork, and determination guiding them forward, they could reclaim their neighborhood from the grip of fear imposed by the Shadow Riders. The next day would bring new challenges, but Carlos was ready to stand alongside his friends, community members, and law enforcement as they prepared for whatever came next in this fight for safety and unity in Silver Creek. As dawn broke over Silver Creek, Carlos felt a surge of determination. Today was the day they would put their plans into action. He gathered his notes and prepared for a busy day ahead. The first step was to set up surveillance around his store and the surrounding area. He knew that knowledge was power, and being aware of the Shadow Riders' movements would give them an advantage. Carlos met with Iron Mike and a few other veterans at the store early in the morning. They discussed where to place cameras and how to monitor the streets effectively. Each member of the team brought their own ideas and experiences, contributing to a solid plan. They divided responsibilities, ensuring that everyone had a role in the operation. With the sun rising higher, they began installing cameras at strategic points around the store. Carlos felt a sense of pride watching his friends work together, each one focused and determined. They were not just setting up equipment, they were building a defense for their community. As they worked, Carlos noticed Tommy Cruz, a local teenager known for his bravery and loyalty to the community. Tommy had been watching from a distance, eager to help but unsure how to get involved. Carlos admired Tommy's spirit. He reminded him of himself at that age, full of energy and ready to take on the world. After finishing with the cameras, Carlos approached Tommy and invited him to join them. He explained their plans and how important it was for everyone to be involved in protecting Silver Creek. Tommy's eyes lit up with excitement as he listened, eager to contribute. However, as they discussed their plans, tension began to build. Some of the older veterans expressed concern about involving someone so young in such a dangerous situation. They worried about Tommy's safety if things escalated with the gang. Carlos understood their concerns but also recognized Tommy's determination. Tommy insisted on helping, expressing his desire to stand up for his community. He spoke passionately about wanting to protect his home and support those who had always looked out for him. Carlos could see the fire in Tommy's eyes. It reminded him of his own youthful bravery. After some discussion, Carlos decided that Tommy could be valuable as an extra set of eyes during their patrols. He would not be on the front lines, but could help monitor things from a safe distance. This compromise allowed Tommy to feel included while ensuring he remained out of harm's way. With everyone on board, they finalized their tactical plan for the day. They would take shifts patrolling the area while keeping an eye on the surveillance feeds from Carlos's store. The veterans would lead the patrols while Tommy would assist by watching from a designated spot nearby. As they prepared to head out, Carlos felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. He knew that confronting the Shadow Riders would not be easy, but he also felt empowered by the support of his friends and community members. Together, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The first patrol began with everyone in high spirits, united by their shared purpose. As they walked through Silver Creek, Carlos felt a sense of camaraderie growing stronger among them. They were not just individuals, they were part of something bigger, a team committed to protecting their town. As hours passed, tension filled the air as they monitored the streets through their surveillance system. Every movement caught on camera heightened their awareness and anticipation. Carlos remained focused, knowing that any moment could bring trouble. Suddenly, one of the cameras picked up movement near a local business, a familiar spot where gang activity had been reported before. The group quickly regrouped and strategized on how to approach this potential threat without putting themselves in danger. Carlos felt his heart race as they prepared for what might come next. The Shadow Riders had been lurking in the shadows for too long, but today was different. Today, Silver Creek was ready to fight back with loyalty and bravery on their side. As they moved toward the location captured on camera, Carlos glanced at Tommy, who was filled with determination despite being nervous about what lay ahead. This young man represented hope for the future, a future where fear would no longer control their lives. With every step closer to confronting the gang, Carlos knew that this was just one part of a larger battle for Silver Creek. But together with Iron Mike, Tommy, and their friends, he felt ready to take on whatever challenges awaited them in this fight for safety and unity in their community. As Carlos and his team approached the location captured on the surveillance camera, the tension in the air thickened. They moved quietly, their hearts pounding with anticipation. Each step brought them closer to a confrontation that could change everything for Silver Creek. Carlos felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, knowing that this was not just about him, but about everyone who called this town home. They reached a corner where they could see the entrance of a local shop. The camera had shown a couple of Shadow Riders loitering outside, their presence a stark reminder of the threat they posed. Carlos signaled for everyone to stop and huddle together. They quickly reviewed their plan, ensuring everyone knew their roles. Iron Mike would take point, watching from a distance, while Carlos and Tommy would flank from the side. As they prepared to move, Carlos glanced at Tommy, who was visibly nervous but determined. He offered Tommy an encouraging nod, reminding him that they were in this together. The young man took a deep breath and squared his shoulders, ready to face whatever came next. With a final signal, they moved into position. Carlos felt adrenaline coursing through him as he took his place beside Mike. The moment had arrived. They were ready to confront the Shadow Riders and show them that Silver Creek would no longer be intimidated. Suddenly, one of the gang members noticed movement and shouted out to his friends. The atmosphere shifted instantly as the Shadow Riders turned their attention toward Carlos and his team. The confrontation had begun. Carlos felt his heart race as he stepped forward, taking charge of the situation. He called out to the gang members, asserting that they were no longer welcome in Silver Creek. His voice rang with authority, fueled by the support of his friends behind him. The gang members laughed at first, underestimating Carlos and his team. But as they stepped closer, it became clear that this was not just a group of scared townsfolk. They were organized and determined to protect their home. Iron Mike moved strategically to create a barrier between the gang and the community members who had gathered nearby, ensuring that everyone remained safe. The veteran stood shoulder to shoulder with Carlos, ready to defend what mattered most. The tension escalated as words were exchanged between Carlos and Victor, the leader of the Shadow Riders. Victor tried to intimidate them with threats and bravado, but Carlos stood firm. He refused to back down or let fear take hold. As the standoff continued, both sides began to size each other up. The gang members were aggressive and loud, but Carlos's team remained calm and focused. They had trained for moments like this. They knew how to stay composed under pressure. Suddenly, without warning, one of the gang members lunged forward, trying to break through their line. In an instant, chaos erupted as both sides clashed. Carlos felt a rush of adrenaline as he fought back against the attackers alongside Mike and Tommy. The fight was intense but brief. Carlos's team worked together seamlessly, each veteran knew their role and executed it with precision. They defended themselves while keeping an eye on Tommy, who remained on the outskirts but was ready to help when needed. In the heat of battle, Carlos's leadership shone through. He directed his team with confidence, shouting commands that kept everyone focused on their goal, protecting their community and driving out the Shadow Riders once and for all. As the fight continued, it became clear that Carlos's strategy was working. They pushed back against the gang members with determination and strength born from unity. Each time one of them fell back or hesitated, it fueled Carlos's resolve even more. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of fighting, Victor realized that his gang was losing ground. With a furious shout, he ordered his remaining members to retreat. The Shadow Riders fled in disarray, leaving behind a community that had stood strong against intimidation. Breathing heavily but victorious, Carlos looked around at his friends and neighbors who had fought alongside him. There was a sense of disbelief mixed with elation in the air as they processed what had just happened. Tommy rushed over to Carlos with wide eyes filled with excitement and admiration. He had witnessed firsthand what it meant to stand up for one's community and how bravery could change everything. In that moment of triumph, Carlos felt a profound sense of pride wash over him. His leadership had been tested in battle, but he had risen to the occasion, defending not just his store, but also every person in Silver Creek who believed in safety and unity. As they regrouped after the fight, hugs and cheers erupted among them. They had come together as a community and emerged stronger than ever before. The war for Silver Creek was far from over. Challenges would still arise in the future. But today marked a turning point, a moment when fear was replaced by courage and determination. Carlos knew that together they could face whatever lay ahead because they had proven that loyalty and bravery could overcome any threat. As he looked at Tommy and his friends celebrating their victory, he understood that this was just the beginning of a new chapter for Silver Creek, a chapter filled with hope for a safer future built on unity and resilience against adversity. As the cheers and hugs filled the air, a sense of relief washed over everyone in Silver Creek. They had faced the Shadow Riders and emerged victorious, but amidst the celebration, an unexpected twist brought laughter back into the mix. Tommy, still buzzing with excitement from the confrontation, was caught up in the moment. He had been watching everything unfold from his position, ready to jump in if needed. As he stepped forward to join the celebration, he tripped over a loose stone on the ground. In an instant, he lost his balance and fell face first into a nearby pile of leaves that had gathered along the sidewalk. The sound of his fall was met with a moment of stunned silence before laughter erupted from the crowd. Tommy's arms flailed as he tried to regain his footing, but instead, he ended up rolling around in the leaves like a playful puppy. His cheeks were flushed with embarrassment as he pushed himself up, leaves sticking to his hair and clothes. Carlos couldn't help but laugh along with everyone else. The sight of Tommy covered in leaves was a stark contrast to the intensity of the earlier confrontation. It was a reminder that even in moments of chaos, joy could break through and lighten the mood. Tommy looked around sheepishly, realizing he had become the center of attention for all the right reasons. He brushed off the leaves and stood tall, trying to play it cool despite his embarrassment. The laughter continued as someone jokingly declared him the Leaf King of Silver Creek. In that moment, the tension from the fight melted away completely. People began sharing their own funny stories about accidents they had experienced during serious moments. Laughter echoed through the streets as they reminisced about times when things didn't go as planned but ended up being humorous instead. Carlos watched as Tommy's initial embarrassment turned into pride. He was no longer just a young man eager to prove himself, he was now part of a community that embraced him for who he was, flaws and all. The shared laughter brought everyone closer together, reinforcing their bond after facing such a significant challenge. As they continued to celebrate their victory, Carlos felt grateful for moments like this. They reminded him that while they were fighting against fear and intimidation, they were also building something beautiful, a community that could support one another through thick and thin. Tommy eventually joined Carlos and Iron Mike again, still chuckling about his tumble. The light-heartedness had rejuvenated everyone's spirits, allowing them to reflect on what they had accomplished without losing sight of their humanity. With smiles on their faces and camaraderie in their hearts, they began discussing their next steps. The fight against the Shadow Riders might not be over yet, but they were ready to face whatever came next, together. The unexpected twist with Tommy had reminded them all that even in serious times, laughter could be a powerful tool for healing and unity. Carlos felt reassured knowing that their community could find joy even amidst chaos. This resilience would be crucial as they continued their fight for Silver Creek. As night fell and celebrations continued under twinkling lights strung across the street, Carlos looked around at his friends and neighbors. They were more than just a group of individuals, they were a family united by shared experiences and laughter, a family ready to stand together against any challenge that lay ahead. As the cheers and hugs filled the air, a sense of relief washed over everyone in Silver Creek. They had faced the Shadow Riders and emerged victorious, but amidst the celebration, an unexpected twist brought laughter back into the mix. Tommy, still buzzing with excitement from the confrontation, was caught up in the moment. He had been watching everything unfold from his position, ready to jump in if needed. As he stepped forward to join the celebration, he tripped over a loose stone on the ground. In an instant, he lost his balance and fell face first into a nearby pile of leaves that had gathered along the sidewalk. The sound of his fall was met with a moment of stunned silence before laughter erupted from the crowd. Tommy's arms flailed as he tried to regain his footing, but instead, he ended up rolling around in the leaves like a playful puppy. His cheeks were flushed with embarrassment as he pushed himself up, leaves sticking to his hair and clothes. Carlos couldn't help but laugh along with everyone else. The sight of Tommy covered in leaves was a stark contrast to the intensity of the earlier confrontation. It was a reminder that even in moments of chaos, joy could break through and lighten the mood. Tommy looked around sheepishly, realizing he had become the center of attention for all the right reasons. He brushed off the leaves and stood tall, trying to play it cool despite his embarrassment. The laughter continued as someone jokingly declared him the Leaf King of Silver Creek. In that moment, the tension from the fight melted away completely. People began sharing their own funny stories about accidents they had experienced during serious moments. Laughter echoed through the streets as they reminisced about times when things didn't go as planned but ended up being humorous instead. Carlos watched as Tommy's initial embarrassment turned into pride. He was no longer just a young man eager to prove himself, he was now part of a community that embraced him for who he was, flaws and all. The shared laughter brought everyone closer together, reinforcing their bond after facing such a significant challenge. As they continued to celebrate their victory, Carlos felt grateful for moments like this. They reminded him that while they were fighting against fear and intimidation, they were also building something beautiful, a community that could support one another through thick and thin. Tommy eventually joined Carlos and 𝗗𝗏𝗦𝗍𝗓 again, still chuckling about his tumble. The light-heartedness had rejuvenated everyone's spirits, allowing them to reflect on what they had accomplished without losing sight of their humanity. With smiles on their faces and camaraderie in their hearts, they began discussing their next steps. The fight against the Shadow Riders might not be over yet, but they were ready to face whatever came next, together. The unexpected twist with Tommy had reminded them all that even in serious times, laughter could be a powerful tool for healing and unity. Carlos felt reassured knowing that their community could find joy even amidst chaos. This resilience would be crucial as they continued their fight for Silver Creek. As night fell and celebrations continued under twinkling lights strung across the street, Carlos looked around at his friends and neighbors. They were more than just a group of individuals, they were a family united by shared experiences and laughter, a family ready to stand together against any challenge that lay ahead. As the festivities continued into the night, Carlos took a moment to step back from the celebration. He found a quiet spot where he could observe the scene unfolding around him. Laughter and chatter filled the air as families and friends gathered, sharing stories and enjoying each other's company. It was a stark contrast to the tension that had gripped Silver Creek just days before. Carlos reflected on how far they had come in such a short time. The fight against the Shadow Riders had brought the community together in ways he never thought possible. Neighbors who had once kept to themselves were now standing shoulder to shoulder, united by a common goal, to protect their home and support one another. He thought about the bravery displayed by everyone involved, from 𝗗𝗏𝗦𝗍𝗓 and the veterans who had stepped up to help, to Tommy, who had shown that courage often came in unexpected forms. Each person had played a vital role in this fight, proving that even in the face of danger, they could stand strong together. As Carlos watched Tommy joking with his friends, he felt a swell of pride. The young man had transformed from an eager teenager into a symbol of hope for the community. His fall into the leaves had become a cherished memory, reminding everyone that laughter could coexist with bravery. But even amid this joy, Carlos could not shake the feeling that challenges still lay ahead. The Shadow Riders were not likely to give up easily, they would regroup and retaliate. He knew that their victory today was just one battle in an ongoing war for Silver Creek. Carlos felt a sense of responsibility weighing on him as he considered what came next. He understood that they needed to remain vigilant and prepared for whatever might come their way. The community had proven its strength, but maintaining that unity would require ongoing effort and commitment. As he returned to the celebration, Carlos joined his friends and neighbors, sharing in their joy while also keeping an eye on the horizon. He knew they would need to continue building their defenses, organizing patrols, and staying informed about any potential threats. The night wore on with music and laughter echoing through Silver Creek. Carlos felt a sense of belonging that filled him with warmth. This was more than just a town, it was a family bound by shared experiences and resilience. He raised his glass in a toast with those around him, celebrating not only their victory but also their unity. Each clink of glasses echoed the promise that they would face whatever challenges lay ahead together. As he looked around at the smiling faces illuminated by twinkling lights, Carlos felt hopeful for the future. They had proven that fear could be overcome by bravery and community spirit. But he also knew that vigilance would be key in maintaining this newfound strength. With determination in his heart, Carlos resolved to lead his community forward into whatever lay ahead. The fight for Silver Creek was far from over, but together they would face it all, ready to defend their home with courage, unity, and an unwavering belief in one another. As the night deepened and celebrations continued, Carlos understood that this was just the beginning of their journey, a journey filled with challenges, but also endless possibilities for growth and resilience as a united community ready to stand firm against any threat that dared to approach. As the celebrations in Silver Creek continued, a new chapter began to unfold, one that would delve into the legal and moral implications of the events that had transpired. In a small courtroom, Judge Ramirez sat at the bench, reflecting on the recent confrontation between the community and the Shadow Riders. His gavel rested beside him, a reminder of his responsibility to uphold justice and fairness. The judge contemplated the complex web of motivations and decisions that had led to the clash. He recognized that while Carlos and his community had acted out of a desire to protect their home, their actions also raised important legal questions. The line between self-defense and vigilantism could be thin, and it was crucial to analyze how personal biases might influence judgments in such cases. Judge Ramirez understood that the community's response was driven by fear and a longing for safety. The Shadow Riders had instilled terror in Silver Creek, pushing residents to take matters into their own hands. Yet, he pondered whether this justified their actions during the confrontation. The law often seeks to balance individual rights with the greater good, and this situation was no different. He reflected on the characters involved: Carlos, a veteran who had fought for his country; Tommy, a young man eager to prove his bravery; Iron Mike, a seasoned soldier with years of experience; and even Victor, the gang leader whose motivations were rooted in power and control. Each individual brought their own perspectives to the conflict, shaped by their experiences and values. The judge considered how these perspectives shaped their understanding of truth and justice. Carlos believed he was defending his community from an imminent threat, while Victor likely saw his actions as a means of maintaining dominance over Silver Creek. This duality highlighted a fundamental question: what does it mean to seek justice? Is it about enforcing the law or protecting one's home? As he reviewed legal precedents related to self-defense and community protection, Judge Ramirez noted that courts often grapple with these themes. Cases involving vigilantism can lead to significant discussions about morality versus legality. He thought about how societal norms influence legal interpretations and how judges must navigate these complexities when making decisions. The judge also recognized that personal biases could cloud judgment. A judge's background, experiences, and values could shape how they viewed a case. It was essential for those in positions of authority to remain impartial while considering the broader implications of their rulings. In reflecting on what had been learned from this situation in Silver Creek, Judge Ramirez understood that it might serve as a catalyst for future discussions about community safety and individual rights. He envisioned a world where communities could come together to address issues without resorting to violence or fear. As he prepared for the next day's proceedings regarding any potential legal action stemming from the confrontation, Judge Ramirez felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew that his role was not just about enforcing laws, but also about fostering understanding among different perspectives within society. The events in Silver Creek had highlighted the importance of dialogue and collaboration in seeking justice. He hoped that through careful consideration of each party's motivations and circumstances, they could pave the way for more equitable solutions in future conflicts. In conclusion, Judge Ramirez recognized that while the fight against fear in Silver Creek was far from over, it had opened up avenues for deeper conversations about justice, fairness, and community responsibility. As he prepared for what lay ahead, he felt confident that by examining these themes thoughtfully, they could contribute to a more just society, one where every voice mattered in shaping their collective future. As the celebrations began to wind down, Carlos gathered his friends and neighbors once more, feeling it was important to reflect on the journey they had taken together. The fight against the Shadow Riders had taught them valuable lessons that he wanted to ensure everyone understood these key takeaways as they prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. The first lesson was the power of unity. Carlos emphasized how their strength came from standing together. When they faced the Shadow Riders, it was not just one person fighting, it was a whole community united in purpose. This unity had given them the courage to confront fear and intimidation. Carlos encouraged everyone to continue fostering this sense of togetherness, reminding them that they were stronger when they supported one another. Next, Carlos highlighted the importance of communication. Throughout their struggle, open lines of communication had allowed them to share information and coordinate their efforts effectively. He urged everyone to keep talking to each other, sharing concerns and ideas. By staying connected, they could respond quickly to any threats and ensure that everyone felt included in their community's safety efforts. Another key lesson was resilience. Carlos reminded them that challenges would always arise, but it was how they responded that mattered most. They had faced adversity and emerged stronger, proving that resilience is about bouncing back from difficult situations. He encouraged everyone to embrace setbacks as opportunities for growth, knowing that each challenge could teach them something valuable. Carlos also spoke about the importance of vigilance. While they had achieved a significant victory, he knew that the threat from the Shadow Riders was not completely gone. He urged everyone to remain alert and aware of their surroundings. By keeping an eye out for suspicious activity and reporting any concerns, they could help protect their community from future harm. The fifth lesson focused on leadership. Carlos acknowledged that while he had taken on a leadership role during the confrontation, true leadership came from empowering others. He encouraged everyone to step up in their own ways, whether by organizing events or volunteering for local initiatives. Leadership is not just about one person, it's about inspiring others to take action for the greater good. Finally, Carlos spoke about hope. In times of fear and uncertainty, hope had been a guiding light for them all. It motivated them to believe in a better future and pushed them to fight for it together. Carlos reminded everyone that hope is contagious. When one person believes in a brighter tomorrow, it can inspire others to do the same. As he wrapped up his reflections, Carlos felt a renewed sense of purpose among his friends and neighbors. They were not just celebrating a victory, they were committing to a shared journey filled with lessons learned and goals set for the future. The atmosphere shifted from one of celebration to one of determination as people began discussing their next steps. Ideas flowed freely as they shared thoughts on how they could continue building on their momentum, organizing neighborhood watch programs, hosting community meetings, and creating resources for residents to stay informed. Carlos felt proud as he watched his community come together once more, energized by their shared commitment to protect Silver Creek. They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with courage, unity, and an unwavering belief in one another. As night turned into early morning, Carlos knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter for Silver Creek, a chapter filled with hope, resilience, and a strong sense of community ready to stand firm against any threat that dared to approach. Together, they would forge ahead into an uncertain future with confidence in their ability to create positive change for themselves and generations to come. As the celebration continued, Carlos felt a wave of inspiration wash over him. He wanted to share some thoughts with everyone, not just about their recent victory, but also about the future and the role each person could play in shaping it. He turned his attention to the crowd, ready to engage them directly with some thought-provoking action prompts that would encourage reflection and participation. First, he asked everyone to consider their own role in the community. What can you do to contribute positively to your neighborhood? Think about how your actions, no matter how small, can make a difference. Whether it's helping a neighbor in need or volunteering for local events, every effort counts. Next, Carlos encouraged everyone to reflect on their own fears. What fears hold you back from taking action? Identify those fears and think about how you can confront them. Remember, bravery is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. Challenge yourself to step outside your comfort zone and take a stand for what you believe in. He then prompted the crowd to think about unity. How can you bring people together in your community? Consider ways to foster connections among neighbors. Organize gatherings, start conversations, or create groups focused on shared interests. Building relationships strengthens the fabric of your community and creates a support system for everyone. Carlos also wanted them to think about resilience. When faced with challenges, how do you respond? Reflect on past difficulties and what you learned from them. Use those lessons to build your resilience for the future. Embrace setbacks as opportunities for growth and encourage others to do the same. He urged everyone to remain vigilant. What steps can you take to stay informed about what's happening in your community? Knowledge is power, and being aware of potential threats allows you to respond effectively. Finally, Carlos asked them to consider hope. What gives you hope for the future? Think about the positive changes you want to see in your community and how you can contribute to making those changes happen. Share your hopes with others, inspire them with your vision for a brighter tomorrow. As he shared these prompts, Carlos felt a sense of empowerment spreading through the crowd. He knew that by encouraging reflection and action, they could all take ownership of their roles in creating a safer and more united Silver Creek. The night was not just a celebration of their victory, it was a call to action for everyone present. Together, they could build on their momentum and face whatever challenges lay ahead with courage and determination. Carlos concluded by reminding everyone that their journey was just beginning. Each person had the power to shape their community's future through their actions and choices. With renewed energy and commitment, they would continue working together, ready to defend their home against any threat that dared to approach, while nurturing a spirit of unity and resilience that would last for generations to come.